Rabbids are some of the most hated creatures ever spawned by Ubisoft, and trust me, that's saying something. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know a ton about them. I just know that people say that one Wii game was good, there's a ride about them that starts in a dirty bathroom, and there was a show on Nickelodeon with the racism episode whose plot was literally stolen from the Mario 3 cartoon. Hey, speaking of Mario and Rabbids, did you know that they had a crossover game? I'm getting really good at segues. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is one of the strangest crossover games ever made, because you hear they are making a crossover between Mario and Rabbids, and just expect some crappy party game. I mean, that's literally what they did with Mario and Sonic, even though an actual crossover between those two series would sell like hotcakes, which sell well, I guess. But no, the Mario and Rabbids crossover is actually a tactical RPG. Okay, you see, this is actually a clever subversion of expectations, because you hear Rabbids and prepare to play the most brain-dead game of your life, and then they throw at you the type of game that requires the most thinking. By all accounts, this should have been the most nothing game ever, and no one should have cared about it. But here I am talking about it 8 years later. Why am I doing that? The game's basic premise is that the Rabbids use a time machine thing to warp into your average Nintendo YouTuber's room, where there is also this device that fuses things together, causing them to merge with all of the Nintendo merchandise and ultimately somehow transporting themselves into the Mario world. I don't remember exactly how it happened, I wasn't paying attention. And then Mario meets some Rabbids, they all get guns, and you get right into the game. I will say, I expected the Rabbids to be the most annoying things ever in this game, but they are actually pretty tame compared to what I was expecting. They're still meant to be the crazy comic relief minion characters, but the jokes go much farther beyond just the Rabbids are loud. I'm not going to act like this game had me cracking up or anything, but at least it wasn't annoying. I will say that the designs for the Rabbid versions of the main characters and the enemies are actually pretty fun, and with some of them they really stretch the definition of what a Rabbid even is, and honestly that's for the better. Since the Rabbids themselves don't really offer anything interesting for a crossover, they use that whole fusion gimmick that I mentioned earlier to make things more interesting. Lots of the random items that could have been found in that room from the beginning of the game are scattered around the world to make for some interesting scenery, like the giant block tower you battle a Rabbid version of Donkey Kong on top of. A lot of the stuff in this game is mostly original as well, which is pretty cool, although I would sort of appreciate it if they maybe leaned into the fact that this game is a Mario crossover a little more. Don't get me wrong, it's really cool that they came up with original ideas and characters for this game, but I definitely think they could have used more Mario characters and locations just to make it a little more interesting. The different worlds in this game do have tons of things that make them look cool and memorable, but most of the time it's just grass, desert, snow, you know the drill. Most Mario games are like that, to be fair, but I also think there are tons of other interesting places from the series that you could have pulled from. Most of these locations I have been talking so much about basically just consist of linear little paths that take you from battle to battle, with possibly a few puzzles here and there. Now, that may sound pretty simple, and that's because it is. This isn't a negative either. While more open games can be fun and cool and maybe awesome sometimes, I will always extremely appreciate a good linear game every once in a while. A game with no fluff, you just move from section to section doing what the game tells you to. The sequel to this game, which I talked about in another video a while back, dabbles in more open environments, which I think it handles pretty well, but in this game's case, I think it was for the best that they stuck to the more linear approach. And when I say that there are puzzles, I don't just mean stupid little baby's first jigsaw type stuff. The puzzles in this game aren't the hardest thing in the world, but do actually require you to think while engaging with them. Once again, a subversion of your expectations after seeing this guy on the box. Obviously though, this game does not just consist of walking from point to point and looking at Rabbids. Each of the 4 worlds is made up of around 8 or 9 chapters, and within those chapters you have a few battles, which is the main focus of the game. As I said at the beginning, the battle system in this game is that of a tactical RPG. I haven't played a ton of tactical RPGs, so I'm sure there are games much harder than this, but for a Rabbids game, it's much more difficult than you might expect. It can take a pretty decent amount of time and thinking to get through each battle, making them incredibly rewarding to get through. The game puts a lot of focus on the cover system, with you being able to hide behind these blocks, which can either offer full protection or only give the enemy a chance of missing their attack. You can play it safe and slow and hide behind cover whenever given the chance, or you can run in with no real plan and hope for the best. While there are definitely certain characters and situations that can benefit from a more offensive, rush-in approach, for the most part, you will be very harshly punished for not using the cover system. The enemies in this game will take any chance they can to punch you to the floor and then kick you while you're down and then take a final shot to your temple to make sure they finish the job. And then you get these stupid big guys with their stupid rock pillar things they're holding, who are allowed extra movement and an extra attack anytime they are hit, even in the middle of your turn. These enemies were by far the ones that usually took the most planning to get around, because they can take out your guys real quick if you aren't smart about it. You also have tons of movement options, with all of the characters being able to jump off of each other to reach further or higher places on the battle map. You got a dash to do damage to enemies as you're moving, and you can also use these pipes that are sometimes scattered around the map to help you move your characters around. The double-edged sword to all of this, though, is that your enemies also have all of these movement options. So just like how you can chain all of these things together to take down the stupid little bunny people, the stupid little bunny people can chain all of this stuff together to take down you. And now this is when we get into more character-specific stuff, like the different weapons, abilities, skill trees. I probably don't need to reiterate it this much, but this is way more than expected or needed for a game with the stupid bois characters. As you progress through the game, you can buy newer weapons for your characters, which do the obvious thing of increasing the damage you deal, while also giving the weapon the chance of dealing out a certain status ailment that can help you out a lot. Then there's the skill tree, where you actually need to be somewhat thoughtful in where you put those skill points, since you really only get enough to unlock a few things at a time. One very convenient thing though is that whenever you get skill points, they go to all of your characters instead of just the ones in your party, making sure you don't have to grind it all and allowing you to switch around the characters you want to use very easily. The main complaint I and many others have over how the characters work in this game is that the game is very restrictive on what characters your team can be made up of. Mario is a character that has to be the leader of your group at all times. He cannot be removed from your roster or switched out for another character. You have to have him on your team. On top of that, you are also required to have at least one Rabbid character on your team. This one isn't as big of a deal since most of the Rabbid characters are actually pretty good, but it's still weird that you're not even given the option to not have one of those characters on your team. There are tons of characters I would have liked to have used more, but because the game is so restrictive on what characters you can have in your party, there were tons that I just didn't get the chance to use as much because I couldn't replace Mario, and it didn't really make sense to replace my other characters. That also leads into the problem that some characters are just vastly better than others. There are no healing items or anything, so if you don't have a character on your team that can restore health in some way, you're just kinda screwed. Basically what I'm saying is that Rabbid Luigi is on the mandatory characters list. He can give any enemy the vamp status effect just by dashing into them, allowing characters to very easily heal and do damage at the exact same time. Then you add Rabbid Mario into the mix, who specializes in close-ranged, very powerful attacks, who also has weapons that deal vamp damage, and then you basically have yourself the unkillable team. Not that these characters trivialize the game or anything, it's still a decently challenging game with this team, especially as you move further on, but I just sort of wish that more combinations were both possible and as good as this one. Rabbid Yoshi and not Rabbid Yoshi are the characters you have to wait the longest to get, and they really aren't that great for characters introduced so late into the game. I feel like all of the best characters were sort of just available from the get-go or pretty close to it. So while yeah, the game is not perfect, I mean I definitely ran into a few issues this playthrough, it is still way better than it has any right to be, and was clearly made from a team that was genuinely passionate about what they were making. This game is genuinely up there for me with some of the best Mario RPGs, and this game came out during a time when those were sort of in a drought. But you know what other series was in a drought during this period of time? That's right, a year or so after this game launched, it got some pretty substantial DLC with Donkey Kong Adventure. Now, in my humble opinion, this DLC is probably my favorite part of the game. The locations you adventure through feel a lot more interesting to me, and Donkey Kong is easily the most interesting character to use in the entire game. This DLC pretty much just follows the exact same structure of the main game, with the gameplay just consisting of walking, doing puzzles, and then battling. Unlike the main game though, instead of having a variety of characters to choose from, you now just have Rabbid Peach, Rabbid Cranky Kong, and Donkey Kong. While I enjoyed being able to put my own team together in the main game, I won't lie, the simplicity of just being told that these are the characters I have to work with and then just going from there was nice in its own way. Rabbit Cranky is the vamp character here, which obviously makes him very valuable, but on top of that, he also has some cool abilities, like being able to blast enemies with his shotgun attacks anytime he gets a boost from another character. Rabbit Peach is the only character that returns from the main game, and she pretty much just serves the same role as the healer like she normally does. I'm gonna be honest here though, I don't really care much for Rabbid Peach and would have just preferred Diddy Kong be the third party member. Why isn't Diddy Kong in this game? I really like this DLC and all, but I don't like it when people think they can make a Donkey Kong game and not have Diddy Kong be there in some way. They are a package deal. You can't erase him. We remember. Also, put him in Mario Kart. But then our final party member is the titular Donkey Kong, who is just so unlike any of the other characters in the game. He has so many different movement options, with him being able to just climb walls, swing on vines, and then just straight pick up any character, enemy, or cover block and then chuck them across the map. This makes it seem as if he is kind of overpowered. Yeah, I think for the most part they did a good job of making sure the battle maps didn't allow him to dominate too much, but he's still a very powerful character. I don't even think I necessarily say that's a bad thing because he's just so fun to use in combat, and stringing together all of his movement options can just be so satisfying. They've also introduced some new battle objectives like collecting these machine parts being held by enemies or stopping specific enemies from reaching a certain point, which keeps things interesting. Overall, I just find this DLC to be super enjoyable and also the closest thing we will ever probably get to some sort of Donkey Kong RPG. I don't think I can say enough how weird it is that this game exists. Ubisoft was definitely in a better place back when this came out, but even then, it seemed like they just wanted to make crappy open world and live service games, so a tactical RPG crossover spin off of the Rabbids, made by a team that was genuinely super passionate about what they were making, was and is just an anomaly. Even more so that it got a sequel. And then they canceled the series, which was more what I expected after the first one, but hey, at least they still got around to it.